We're out. We're gonna go check to see if there's any cancellations in business class. Worth a shot. And then we're gonna go to the lounge. Welcome back to the Metropolitan Lounge in Chicago. We're going to hang out here, go on checking to see if anyone had canceled in business class to St. Paul. So we're going to try coach on the Borealis today, train 1333, leaving at 11:05. Now, in case you haven't seen my Borealis video, I found the aromas of the coach waiting area to be bad. Some people I've talked to about this, they've claimed that it's average, and maybe it is, but if that's the average smell of the coach passenger traveler these days, well, I'm a little bit worried. This is a Sunday train. I'm not out much, just leg room and cup holder and armrest, so there's still a chance that further on past Milwaukee on the journey, there will probably be enough empty seats for me to have no seatmate, and I don't really believe they have a problem with moving around on this train, but it'll depend on the crew and how busy it is. Definitely the Metropolitan Lounge is agreeable today. I'm the only one upstairs. Coach passengers need something to do on the train, and with very limited table capacity on the Amtrak cafe cars, you just don't get that. And you know, sitting in your seat the entire time looking out the window is fine for me. Honestly think they need to make some kind of a new lounge car, but it's not the thing people are clamoring for, and we're doing well enough just to have enough, you know, coach and sleeper cars these days. And Pennsylvania room is really the kind of place you just have to know about. And it's not to say it's inaccessible to people. There's an elevator, but most folks that come to the lounge here in Chicago just tend to stay downstairs, and I'm not complaining. It's a great space, and more people should come up here and check it out. Several Stroop waffles and 3 coffees and countless caffeinated chocolates later, we will soon be going down to the boarding lounge. How will it smell today? I'll give you a look when we get there to tell you. Over its initial year of operations, the Borealis trains have been leaving St. Paul and the stops between Chicago and Milwaukee relatively full on a frequent basis. There's demand here for these trains on the CPKC-owned Milwaukee Road and Mississippi River running routes, and states' budgetary contributions are regularly moving more people across Minnesota and Wisconsin to and from St. Paul, Milwaukee, and Chicago by rail. The initiation of this service has grown ridership for Amtrak in the region, rather than simply diluting the pool of ridership represented by riders aboard the Empire Builder, the long-distance daily train also operating on the route.
Go ahead. He's letting you guys go first. Ma'am. Yep. Yep.
No. Looks great. Comparatively, and despite how the initial conductor characterized it in his first onboard announcement, Borealis does not have a lounge car, nor a dining car. What it has is an Amfleet half-cafe, half-business class car. It's either the first or the last car of the consist, and it's the preferable ticket if you can get it in business class. See my earlier video for that experience. You can order food from the cafe car, anyone can aboard the train, but your time spent at the tables of the cafe side of the car is limited to your time spent eating. Coach accommodations on Borealis aren't a bad product compared to what you'd get on an airline. The seats are wider with reupholstered surfaces from recent decades in these Bombardier-built Horizon cars that have been operating on Amtrak state-sponsored services for over 30 years. These cars are not the kind you'd be on for overnight long-distance trains out east. The Horizon's tighter seat pitch and lack of leg or footrests put these type of cars out of contention for overnight runs. They're sort of like comet cars made for commuter services, though some characterize them as prison trains given the lack of creature comforts and an increased amount of stainless steel surfaces in the bathrooms. Alternately, if I was to have taken the Empire Builder, which leaves Chicago 4 hours after Borealis' departure, I'd have an upper-level coach seat with leg and footrests for the ride up to St. Paul, as well as the Sightseer lounge car with its windowed views in the consists if I don't prefer to sit next to my seatmate, and would rather take in the Midwestern scenery prior to sundown. There'd also be a dining car in which I can pay for a plated meal served at a communal dining table in yet another car to spend part of the trip. Borealis offers a single-level train car with the same scenery as Builder, viewable through a narrower window. On Borealis, your trip is bare bones, with only the cafe car or the restroom as your second places to spend time, limited to while you're eating food purchases on board or need to use the restroom.
There's no lounge car, that's a cafe car. It's already full of teenagers who haven't bought anything. What?
That's why I usually take business class on this route, for its increased level of comfort and proximity to the cafe car. But such isn't always an option, like today when it was sold out. Given that there's fewer seats in half a car for the fare offering priority boarding and free basic beverages such as water and coffee, one guaranteed free soda-type beverage, and on the St. Paul side, the smaller business class lounge prior to boarding is included with the ticket, or as I like to call it, the fish tank. See that room in my recent Empire Builder video when we took this route in a roomette with our 7-month-old daughter. Suffice to say I prefer the Empire Builder due to its departure times maximizing the time I get to spend in Chicago. The Borealis provides more available inexpensive coach seats on the Builder, and has also seen sleeper car accommodation prices mitigated by the extra capacity on the route. Either service takes about as long as driving across Wisconsin, with less stress than time spent in traffic or at airports, where flight times will always be faster but rarely cheaper than train fares. That should be the selling point for this service. I think it still is, with the silent majority that regularly take this route across Minnesota and Wisconsin remaining steadfast in their ridership, even if it is only occasionally. But the more vocal ridership is usually within the extremes of how much a novelty they consider Amtrak. Most new riders know how airports work in America. They encounter the process of flying expected to be herded around, but they don't really know what's going to happen aboard the train. Amtrak does some of this herding at each station, but many unstaffed stations on the line just accumulate passengers without guidance, and that makes for an initially confusing product, as can also happen in some staff stations. I wish there was something on each e-ticket that says, "The train will approach on the track, possibly on time. Wait for the conductor to open a door, show them your ticket, and get on board." That would cover the bases while also identifying the primary issues for travelers taking trains on the line that haven't taken them before. Borealis and Empire Builder operate on freight routes that have a bit of a transcontinental business here. Money spent on sidings and additional running segments of track have improved the route over recent decades. 3 hours late is no longer the norm, but it's all more than a lot of travelers would prefer. But Borealis typically mitigates the delays of the Empire Builder, particularly eastbound. An hour or two late represents significant delays to Borealis's on-time performance, but it's thankfully a rare occurrence. Even when the Builder is delayed and runs in block close to Borealis's schedule, CPKC has been keeping both trains from getting held up by freight or each other, holding up their end of the deal more than happens out west on the BNSF Northern Transcon line. Folks living beyond Chicagoland are increasingly car-dependent, and Amtrak operates in cities with sparse, mostly infrequent public transit options and ridership. A parking lot is essential for every Amtrak station out here in the Midwest. Before this train ran, I once parked at Sturtevant, Wisconsin, near the end of the line, driving all the way over from St. Paul for the inexpensive parking option to pick up a Hiawatha train rather than drive all the way and pay more to park everywhere in Chicago. Since Borealis is a popular service, how does it stack up financially? Well, it operates at better than expected revenue, but much less than fully recovering the full operating expenses via any state or federally contributed amounts. It's better at this recovery versus a lot of Amtrak's routes, including the Empire Builder, but what could Amtrak do to improve ridership and better cover operating expenses? The answer is primarily get contracts for new train cars funded and get people jobs building the cars. Then we can seriously discuss which of the planned regional lines would best be added to the timetable of Amtrak's Midwest services through Wisconsin. This is where everything becomes more complicated due to funding being at taxpayers' expense, Amtrak's history of adversarial relations with host railroads, and customer service blunders experienced by riders. The options for routes up for consideration are all sound choices for new corridors, but they're all corridors that haven't seen passenger rail since into and well before the 1970s. These new lines will require more to become passenger-ready today than the already equipped existing route of the Empire Builder was at the inception of the Borealis.
Columbus. If Columbus is your destination, please make your way to a door where you see a unicorn name. Now arriving Columbus. Columbus now arriving. Boarding in about a half hour. Boarding next stop. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, they really need to change the rules because half the time you're like 50 yards from the house and you have to go 10 miles an hour.
Now arriving.
You don't need to show up early. They have a high-speed train from DC to
Yeah. No, but he'll take it from DC to Chicago. And then he did it from DC to Chicago.
It makes sense for me. So normally drive to in Mississippi all the time. That would absolutely never drive to California.
No, yeah. No, you're right.
Unless you really like trains.
I think he
A lot of people do.
Yeah.
You should. Three guys posted up, old guys, posted up outside the fence at that train station taking photos of the train because they love the trains.
I think
by next year, we've already discussed this. I'm just gonna take the train to Wisconsin Dells.
One year of ridership data for Borealis isn't enough to really develop a feel for trends. It's just a sampling. Deeper questions about why people out here travel matter less than will they come back and take Amtrak again? And that's another that will come over time and ridership data in the years to come. If Amtrak can make a convenient service that isn't a total letdown in the guest experience, more people will park their cars for long trips and use at least the regional rail service to get to their next city. Whether new ridership is more obtainable by adding more trains on the present route or building infrastructure to serve a new branch in Madison and Eau Claire is best answered as both, of course. The Borealis route could use more frequency, and new cities should be brought into the network as well. But in an era of attempted fiscal conservancy, just one additional train would be a stretch for a lot of taxpayers to justify. Folks between major cities are less likely to want to pay for train service they can't conveniently utilize because they have to drive to another city to pick it up. They have to own a vehicle to accomplish their daily lives' tasks, and the offering of a train for long-distance travel has benefited the Milwaukee Road corridor, but some public animus needs to be dissolved on the other corridors before service could be best conceptualized for Amtrak. With more public support, the route from St. Paul to Milwaukee via Eau Claire and Madison would probably be a safely assured repeat of the success of Borealis in selling this service to potential riders. The other routes are all better served with additional frequent bus service. Just setting up the Eau Claire and Madison route requires an extensive restoration of the almost non-existent passenger facilities on the line, the expansion of rail capacity via sidings and signals, establishment of a schedule for passenger trains, whatever else the freight railroads might demand. Then it's just an easy matter of securing federal funding over several congressional cycles and, wait, this seems like a dream when you lay it all out. Ah. We certainly need more train cars first, before any new routes can be considered. The wait time for the few rail car production facilities in North America is considerably great. Manufacturers are more likely to commit profits to expanding facilities if route planning by Amtrak can be agreed upon with the states, but they want the funding secured at least. A bigger network can't be considered conceptual without rolling stock being manufactured on more reasonable timelines. So bear that in mind when people talk about running more trains. It's really just talk until heavy manufacturing industries can build cars at a pace that doesn't project new lines out to a decade or more, because Amtrak has to wait for one or two factories to make trains for all of North America before the new services. I personally predicted a longer timeline for Borealis to become operational last year. That CPKC fit the trains into their blocking on a daily basis is a good sign that Amtrak is tolerated by the freight company, for now. If they got enough operational improvements from government budgets, this might let a regional network just happen one day on paper, like Borealis suddenly did in early 2024, and start rolling down the rails with an extended Hiawatha run. But running these older Horizons over the past winter required a lot of maintenance. From internet hearsay, their plumbing or brake lines may have frozen on some extreme conditions, and you actually saw Superliners taking their place on the route. And regularly multiplying the number of miles for each extended train in any weather will hasten the need for new rolling stock. We're presently stuck in limbo, enjoying the comfortable seats of Horizon cars, tolerating their more worn-out ride characteristics, until Minnesota buys into the Midwest rail car pool and additional venture cars can be made. Then the question will be how many riders will tolerate the pre-reclined, thinly padded venture car seats, and still take repeat trips after the different but not better new rail cars are delivered. Or hey, maybe there's still time to design a better seat.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming up here in just a few minutes, our next station stop is Red Wing. If Red Wing is your destination at this time, please gather up your belongings, luggage, and start making your way to the door where you see a uniformed Amtrak employee.
In any case, riders out here have good reason to both take and not take Borealis as it is, depending on where they live. It's a decent service But to overcome the faster act of just driving oneself between cities on the line, there has to be more trains on the schedule. But more trains need more rail cars and funding, and we've not likely got either for some time. Will Borealis ridership plateau? I have my concerns. The further you get from Chicago, taking a train isn't something people do on a regular basis. People of all ages out here are going to benefit from a more standardized station and onboard experience, one that Amtrak has been severely inconsistent about providing. People out in the middle of the route are better positioned to have a vehicle in their everyday lives. They pay taxes for the train, but they already need to have fueled their vehicles for their daily tasks. Why pay the extra fare when money's already tight and you've got the gas in the tank? This is what Amtrak needs to overcome in their sales strategy. Amtrak is good about touristic long-distance routes, but they struggle to operate great corridors where road networks are more convenient options for medium-length travel of less than a couple hundred miles, and traffic is relatively tolerable for folks. But Borealis seems to suggest that more trains create more riders where ridership already exists. Whether Amtrak can extrapolate that someday remains to be seen. Much like whether or not Midwestern riders will someday take train travel for what it is, a slower, simpler long-distance travel option that can only be serious about its quality of service as what time and money people are willing to devote to it. I personally prefer leaving my car behind to take trains, rather than fly. But without public transit at my destination, I'd have less of a budget to do much at all. And that's not to say my cheapskate nature puts it to good use anyhow. I love Amtrak, but it's a more weird and inconsistent experience than it needs to be. But that is to say much of it, especially the window views along the way, are a good source of normalcy. We also had the same crew on this trip from Milwaukee West as my other 2 Borealis trips, and that was nice to see. I can't make out Borealis to be much more than it is. It's another Amtrak train. It's worth the extra time for the cheaper coach fare versus flying, and even if you can't get a cheap business class fare. As for my experience, these corridor trains are becoming less worthy of future videos, maybe saved for new expansions and if there's some sort of unexpected goings-on while on board the first or last legs of my travel to and from Chicago. Why is no one taking the elevator? I guess you can count me on board for the Wisconsin expansion plan whenever it gets realized. Alright, so that is the end of Borealis trip number 3. But before the end of the year, we're going back to the East Coast, to New York and Philly. Flying there, but then we're taking the Northeast Corridor. So I'll see you then! In shorter order, I'll be taking Amtrak's Southwest Chief, Cardinal, and Crescent trains over the coming months. I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Because of course it is. Okay, I see them. Yep, that's mine.
Dad!
Hello!
Thea's in the car waiting for you.
Oh, there. Okay, now it's done.